Tina.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Waiting for this ugly weather to be coming in. Boy, oh boy.
I know
Ready
it.
to go.
I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's spared in this stuff. Y'all are supposed to get that yucky stuff, not me.
No, you didn't escape this one. Boy, I don't know what it's going to do for Sunday up here. Oh, well, that's a whole nother thing.
Right. I'm gonna give me a second. Let me get I'm trying to get us so I can see if we could have comments here. So I can't believe I get to talk to you. This is amazing.
That's a whole nother thing.
All right. I'm gonna give me okay, hold on. There we go. All right. Right. I got to like do dual channels and all kinds of stuff happening here. Awesome. So something big happened to you in November. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
if everybody knows about that,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
you were inducted into the New York State Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, was. It was great. I just uh, was recognized by the New York State baseball people about the time that I put in Yankee Stadium, which was about 60 years. And they went beyond the lines, Lena. Most of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, not knocking them or anything, they do a lot of just baseball players for the most part.
Yeah.
But the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame goes beyond the lines into the administration and the people that do the grunt work.
Yeah.
So that's where I was for about 60 years.
60 years. That is fantastic. Can you kind of talk about like how you got started?
Well, I started as an usher going back into, as a matter of fact, you're aware that I turned 80 a couple of weeks ago.
I know. It's amazing.
You know what? It's not bad. It's not the worst thing. It's just a number. It's a
It
number.
is
That's
just a
all.
number. You're still the coolest cat out there, so heck yeah.
So in 1949, my dad was an usher. He
Uh-huh.
started taking me to the games, and after about 10 years of doing that, he said, "Hey, pal, you're coming up on the arm long enough. You're gonna have to start earning it." What do you mean I'm gonna earn it? He says, "You got to work for it now." Oh, I don't want to work. He said, "Well, if you want to go to the game, you got to work." And he flipped me an usher's mitt. I became an usher in 1958, and I was an usher for about 15 years during my time in the service, Guantanamo Bay, and all through. And then in 1973, I came aboard full time. And from that point on, in group and season sales, I was invited to conduct a tour on Veterans Day in 1979 for the Bronx County Historical Society. And I said, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem, no problem." But as we were getting closer to the date, public speaking in front of oh no, no, no. Hope it rains, it snows, it sleets, it hails. I had all of that plus 125 people. But you know what? I lived. It was when I lived, and I started doing VIP tours for about 5 years, and then opened them up to the children in the schools in 1985. And from that point on, the tours started to gain a little traction. And by 1990, we opened them up to the public. And then a big break came in 1998 when Mr. Steinbrenner, the boss, called me up and said, "Tony, I'm going to entrust you in opening up a department, the tour department. You don't have to report to anybody. Just let me know what you're doing."
Wow.
Okay. And so what happened was the tours started to explode in the turn of the century, and they were gathering a lot of steam and everything. So it was a lot of teachers that were bringing their school children out. And I said,
Mm.
"Well, we have to do something a little bit more than just take on a stroll Yankee Stadium," which in and of itself was a beautiful thing. You're walking on the warning track, you're in the dugout, the clubhouse, Monument Park, you're all over the place for an hour. And the kids loved it. But I wanted to do a little bit more for them. And we got into education. So the teachers and I started to collaborate on a program of leadership for the kids. I did a PowerPoint presentation, took them to the schools, and then it started to pick up some more steam. The big day, the big time came in 2014. when the National Assessment for Educational Progress report came out, the nation's report card, stating that only 18% of our eighth grade students were proficient in social studies. That was
Wow.
alarming to see
Yeah.
that 82% of our kids were struggling. So I designed a program which would help the youngsters understand American history through the eyes of baseball. And that started to gather steam. And then I started taking it out into the schools and visiting the schools, doing PowerPoint presentations and like that. And it was getting picked up. And then Fordham University invited me to become an adjunct professor and teach it at Fordham, which I did for about 5 years after I retired from the Yankees. But when I retired, I didn't want to drop the program.
Yeah.
So somebody gave me the opportunity to write a book. And the book, as you see, um, baseball, the New York game, how the national pastime parallels U.S. history, so the kids can understand a little bit more about our history through the national pastime, which went lockstep, going from post-Revolutionary War period on through the Manifest Destiny, the Gold Rush, the Civil War, all of that into today. It was a symbiotic relationship that we joined for our popular culture, and it just that's where it is right now. So on LinkedIn is where I'm trying to reach the powers that be in the educational process to interest them into taking a closer look at an additional program here where the kids could understand and make adjustments to their progress. And that's what it really comes down to.
Wow. Wow. From beginnings of Usher at the stadium,
Yeah,
all the way to this incredible book to impact children and their education. How does this happen? That's amazing. I had this book also is it helped me in history too, by the way.
it's there.
Just incredible. Some of the things, the coverage here. One is I learned a lot more about baseball, and I will tell you that this encouraged me more. You know, we have some world champions here from this
Oh
year.
boy.
But
I knew you did it, and somehow I knew it. Oh boy. In all due respect, you guys earned it. You were the best in the business, and you got
yeah,
it.
yeah. But here's the thing. I would not have watched anywhere near as much ever before as I had to appreciate it as much as I had after just having so much more. And I know this is like, very relative to New York, but it's also about just American history, and it's amazing. And then just like being able to put some of this together. And I had some notes here. You even talk about, as you go farther deep into the book, it says there are factors that AI cannot determine, including the health and psychological presence as to a player's readiness to give 100%. I mean, you started in the 1800s at the beginning of this book and are talking about AI and how it is predictive to the players. And I just thought that was amazing, the amount of information and how relative it would be for kids up to date. I mean, this is like current of what's going on.
Oh yeah, but the basis of it. When people look for, like, they ask you, well, when was it invented and things like that? It wasn't really invented. It just evolved from folk games and even games of ball before then. George Washington and exhorting his troops to have more exercise and playing games of ball. So this was a sign of what was to come. But by 1845, right after the railroad and the telegraph and the annexation of Texas, how big was that with the going on with the Mexican War, and that was like a bedrock of a time that I would point out to people when baseball, because the rules that the New York Knickerbockers, had laid down at that time were the rules that continued, and just metastasized, so to speak, by the New York press, which was the largest press engine in the country at that time, and it started to spread west and south. And New Orleans had a big factor in the game of baseball early on, so it wasn't too far away from where you are and Texas, because when that Manifest Destiny thing came about and started to go west and the Rio Grande, and a lot of big stuff was going on right down there where you are today. So there's a lot of good stuff in there on American history and how we approached the Civil War and the aftermath, that terrible Reconstruction period after that, going into the Gilded Age, the Progressive Era, and on into the 20th century to where we are today. And now the thing that's the beauty of all of this is that the game has sort of taken a back step to football and basketball as far as popularity is concerned, but it's still our national pastime. And the thing that about baseball that's making more advancements is in globalization. It's starting to spread. Japan is really involved in it. All the countries in Europe are getting into the baseball. They went out to London, England just a couple of years ago. So it's starting to spread. And I think it's in a good spot. It's resilient. It lasted through the performance-enhancing drug era, the Black Sox scandal. So all these things that were detractions from the game will overcome eventually.
That is incredible. And what are you doing now as far as, like, I know I see you all the time are on book signings and going out, and when you are trying to reach that particular audience you were talking about, like on LinkedIn and other places, are those who in the school systems are you looking to bring more of this and to bring this education to?
Well, it's a good question. The decision makers, Lena. The decision makers in the educational process that could affect the direction of taking into consideration that, as far as the global position of our educational system, we're not anywhere near the top. We're sort of like in the middle. Okay, so if there's an adjunct or an alternative program, it should be considered. So if you take a look at the national pastime, you can understand the history, how it evolved at the same time, going in lockstep with the country's history and moving into where we are today. So the people that I'm looking for relative to your question are the decision makers in the educational process. And I think through LinkedIn and Facebook, like that is one of the venues, or the main venue.
Yeah. So referrals, maybe boards, educational boards. Would that be people that are on the board?
Oh, absolutely.
As well?
Parent Teachers Association. How about them? Right, Lena?
Yeah.
They have an influence. So there are directions that I can go into and that I will be going into. Right now, I'm working with the Society of American Baseball Researchers on the 100th anniversary of Yankee Stadium, and I happen to be the only eyewitness for 60 of those years. So
that's incredible.
Stuff, and that's going to be coming out like in February, which is when spring training gets rolling. And so we'll see how it evolves from there.
You also skipped over something too, or we skipped over it, and I was like thinking about this too. Wounded Warriors. You brought that project to Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, well, there was an expose back in 2007 on 60 Minutes, and it showed what Walter Reed Hospital looked like for our guys and girls that got banged up over in the Middle East, and they were coming back to these deplorable conditions. It broke my heart. It really did. I'm a veteran myself. I didn't get involved. I was in Gitmo and came close, but there was no active involvement here. And I saw that it wasn't acceptable. So one of the ball players was a guy by the name of Johnny Damon. He was a center fielder for the Yankees at the time, who was an Army brat. His family was involved in the service, and they moved their lives around as the service required. And I asked Johnny if he would help me do a program which we could invite the Wounded Warrior Foundation to come and get those people up, and not only a tour of Yankee Stadium, but to introduce them to the ball players. Oh my God, Lena, it was a great thing. So it spread out to the special operations guys, the Green Berets, and it's just started to grow. And it was going well, and eventually we got hit with the COVID, and they're doing it more on a limited basis now. But we want to remember the guys that paid the price for where we are today, and the girls, obviously.
That is incredible.
Thank you.
That is fantastic, and thank you. You served our country well. Navy, right?
Yep. 4 years, I have respect for those guys that actually got involved, and we were never involved. We came close during the crisis, but it fortunately didn't happen. But you never forget about the guys that had to pay the price of where we are today. Yeah,
that's amazing. Hey, I think, don't you still do some tours somewhere close to the Bronx? I recall getting to go on one here last June. Do you still do those on the weekends?
Yeah, I still have a tour of
is that?
The New York Botanical Garden. Oh my God, I love it. I grew up there. It was like a playground to me for years and years. And then all of a sudden I was going to Fordham University at night. So I would leave the stadium and come up maybe about 15 minutes away. The class started at 6:30. I was leaving the ballpark at 5:30, and sometimes I get there early. Let me just go through the park, like it was nature, second nature to me. Then all of a sudden, instead of the trees that I was climbing, shaking out chestnut trees and getting chased by security and everything, now I started to see the beauty of it. Oh. So by 1985, after I finished Fordham and everything, got my degree, I said, I'm going to become a docent here, and I'm going to start talking a little bit more about it. And 8 years later, I was doing a tour of the conservatory, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I had this lady that was standing next to me. And I didn't pay too much attention. So I had about 12 or 15 people. So we moved from the palm court, which we were in this big, beautiful dome place, and all the palms come from different parts of the globe and everything, and into the tropical house with rain and humidity. You could see the difference and everything. She was gone. And then one Sunday morning after Mass, I came to the garden. And there's nothing like being in the garden when it's just you, the birds, and the squirrels. Really. There's nothing better than that. And all of a sudden, I see this lady coming down the path. I said, don't I know you from someplace? She said, no, I don't think so. She got closer. I said, yeah, I know you. You walked off my tour 3 weeks ago. Why'd you walk off my tour? She was hysterical. We got married 2 years later.
Oh.
Yeah, we had a good run for about 20 years. She passed away a few years ago, but she put me on a good track. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So it's near and dear to me. So when I left the stadium in 2018, I said, I'm going to go back home. Where was home? It's in the garden. Yeah. That's where home was. And I'm still enjoying it. And
that's a wonderful story. That is a wonderful story. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thank you.
You are an amazing tour guide too. I can certainly testify to it. Just every single plant there and the beauty of it and the awe and wonder. And it really is breathtaking, just magical for sure. So I'm glad that you still do that. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Oh man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, this is fantastic. I love getting your time together. I know we had to go live to get together again. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
but
The-
hey, we have to say hi to Tina. She stopped by and said hi to us. Roderick Neal, he stopped by, one of my buddies from supply chain, and Anne, our lovely Anne Ryan, our
oh,
mutual.
where's Ann? She's
Uh,
around.
she's in our comments. She's been watching, you know.
Okay.
That's a funny story. I can't believe you know Anne and I know Anne. And then what you got on our show that time
That was
together. That was
hysterical.
something.
My God, Lena, I was.
Yeah, isn't that something? And she's super wonderful.
Yes,
What a
she
man,
is.
I love her to death. But
Yeah.
she's like, how do you know him? I said, how do you know him?
Oh my God, I
She said,
couldn't
I'm
believe it.
watching.
Uh,
Yes,
I couldn't
yes,
believe it. Yeah,
yeah, that
I
is
saw
so
Friday night
fantastic.
at the party. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, she
I'm
was at the
so
party,
jealous.
looking great and everything, and just a wonderful person. Really
Yeah,
adore her. Yeah,
yeah,
we do. So we got to get you up and take a run around the city. So when you
mhm.
start looking ahead in your schedule and saying, hey, I want to get up to the Big Apple, we'll be
Yeah,
there for you.
that, yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely want to do that for sure. That is awesome. Yeah,
Okay. Good.
for sure. But I would say not in this cold weather, but I've decided to have cold weather here too. So that doesn't matter. But maybe in the spring would be a great time to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
That's
hope that people that have watched will talk to potentially some parent teacher associations. And if they know someone on Board of Educations or decision makers that will get this history in the hands of children, an extra program that will really help them in education. We need to be smarter to help our children be smarter, right? And give them things that make sense. And so, how not to tie baseball to history and to see it evolve and understand it, but also learn about our own American history. I think it's just fantastic. And the changes that have come about. So I hope that people will connect with you more and more and more and more because they should. Um, and I think that they should find out when you're doing the tours at the Bronx. Botanical Gardens there. I almost said Houston, which I wish you were in Houston, but
yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Tony, I love you to death. I'm so thankful for you to take your time this morning with me.
Oh my
And
God. I owe you big hugs.
oh
Big
my
hugs coming your way.
God. Yes, I
And,
can't wait to hug your neck.
yeah.
But stay warm, and I'll talk to you outside of this live stuff, and
Okay.
we'll connect again. Everybody that's watching, thanks for coming, and be sure to connect with Tony. And I'll talk to you soon. See ya.
Thank you. Thank you, Lena. Thank you.